When I got married, I had just turned 13. We stood in my living room and in this ugly dress that my mother bought off the internet.
Well, we're here in Idaho talking about Angel's story because this state has one of the highest rates of child marriage anywhere in the country. Now, the rules are different for each state, but in 25 of them, there is no set minimum age below which a child can't get married. Even in all of the other states where there is a minimum age set, it can be as low as 13 or 14 years old. While the US is just waking up to this problem, here's a list of countries who, in the last 3 years, have completely banned child marriage.
So when we've set our foreign policy and when we're going around the world, what we're saying is marriage before 18 is a human rights abuse, forces girls into adulthood before they're ready, and we need to end it. But at home, in the United States, in year 2017, marriage before 18 is legal in all 50 states. Our clients, they come from every socioeconomic level. Really, the commonality that we see among our clients is that they're almost always girls, and that the perpetrators are almost always their parents.
But you might not know that child marriage is legal and tolerated in 49 American states. Not only that, the parents in the US can force their underage, pregnant daughter to get married, even if she's been raped. So how big a problem is child marriage in the US? Here's Frady Reese. She's the founder of Unchained at Last, a charity fighting child marriage in the US.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very surprised to learn how pervasive a problem child marriage is in America. We at Unchained at Last retrieved marriage license data from across the US and discovered that in just the decade 2000 to 2010, an estimated 248,000 children were married in the US as young as 12 years old, possibly even younger, and almost all of them were girls married to adult men.
Across the US, you normally need your parents' permission to get married before your 18th birthday. But in every state except Delaware, there are loopholes that allow much younger children to get married. Now, of course, some of these will be young couples in love, but there are some cases where the law fails to protect vulnerable children. The state brought in a new minimum age for marriage, 17 years old. So what about the rest of America? It's not just Florida where the so-called, and it's an awful phrase, marry your rapist loopholes exist. In Missouri, you have to be at least 17 to consent to sex. But between 1999 and 2015, more than 1,000 15-year-olds got married in Missouri. And around 300 of those girls married men who were older than 21. It's thought that some of the grooms were in their 40s and 50s. Now, under normal circumstances, a man of that age having sex with a 15-year-old would be considered a rapist. But those 300 men, well, they married girls who would otherwise be considered their victims. And the marry your rapist loopholes, that means that they're immune from prosecution.
Unfortunately, this is just shocking. In many states, marriage is an exception under statutory rape laws. And so what happens is in those states, every time a marriage license is handed out to an adult to marry a child under the age of consent to have sex or not allowed to consent to sex with somebody that spouse's age, that's in essence a get out of jail free card. We're legalizing rape.
So why isn't there a minimum marriage age of 16? New York raised the age threshold from 14 to 17, and Texas took steps to close some of the loopholes in its system. But Delaware is still the only state to have an outright ban on all marriage for all under 18s. Despite its own problems, the US sponsors efforts to reduce child marriage around the world. Here's what President Obama had to say about child marriage in Kenya.
There's no place in civilized society for the early or forced marriage of children. These traditions may date back centuries. They have no place in the 21st century.
We in the United States, when we set our foreign policy, the U.S. State Department made very clear that marriage before 18 is a human rights abuse. And in establishing foreign policy, also identified ending child marriage abroad as a key strategy for empowering adolescent girls around the world. The federal government allocates more than $10 million a year to end child marriage abroad and to help child marriage survivors abroad. There's a stunning hypocrisy here.
So what about the UK? If you're 16 in England and Wales, you can get married with your parents' permission, and in Scotland you don't even need that. So technically the UK allows kids to marry, but there is a law that prevents children from being forced into marriage.